Howdy, hola, hello, welcome back to another episode of Trains Round. A lot to get through this week. We've got a little bit of last week's news to cover as well, because last week we just focused on the Spain derailment. If you want to know more about them, that's last week's video, so go check that out if you want. But that means that we've got some of last week's stories to cover, which, yeah, we've got a few papers to get through. So, coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at the Stonehaven derailment inquiry, which has started looking into many different aspects of the derailment that happened back in 2020. We're also going to be looking at how the rail regulator, the Office for Road and Rail, has admitted it did not have all the facts when it decided to not allow passengers on a peak time train. Avanti West Coast has made a bid to bring back an extra weekday London service, and ScotRail has apologised after an elderly passenger collapsed after enduring freezing carriages on one of its most popular services, and also loads more. Starting off with the big news of the week. The fatal accident inquiry has been told that the 3 men who were killed in the Stonehaven train derailment suffered unsurvivable injuries. The train driver, conductor and a passenger died in the accident, which happened at Carmont near Stonehaven in Aberdeenshire back on the 12th of August 2020. There were also 6 other passengers on the service who were also injured. It happened when it came off the tracks after it hit a landslide following heavy rain in that area. The fatal accident inquiry, which began on Monday at Aberdeen Sheriff Court, heard that the passenger, Christopher Stutchbury, was thrown clear of the train by the derailment, while the body of the driver was found on the lower part of the embankment where the carriage had scattered. The body of the conductor was found stuck in the doorway of coach D and could not be retrieved at the time until the following day. That is what the inquiry has been told. Now, emergency services who attended the crash site after the alarm was raised were confronted with what was described as a highly complex incident, with 2 firefighters becoming injured during the course of the operation. Now, an inspector of rail accidents with the Rail Accident Investigation Branch told the inquiry that the passenger train had collided with debris washed from a drain onto the track near Carmont in Aberdeenshire, following very heavy rainfall at about 9:37 a.m. Now, the train was travelling at about 73 miles an hour at the time of the crash. Now, it is also said that the number of casualties would have been significantly higher if the train had been full. However, if you remember, at the time, 2020, obviously no one was really travelling because it was COVID. Now, Network Rail back in 2023 were fined £6.7 million after pleading guilty to health and safety failings, which led to the deaths. In the same year, so also in 2023, almost £1 million in damages was secured from the rail operator for 7 people affected by the crash. Now, a report published by the Rail Accident Investigation Branch found, this was published in March 2022, by the way, it found errors in the construction of a drainage system installed by a company called Carillion, whatever, which meant it was unable to cope with heavy rain, which fell in the area on the morning of the crash. Now, that company went into compulsory liquidation just over 2 years earlier in 2018. Now, this report made 20 recommendations to improve railway safety, many of which were directed at Network Rail. Network Rail said its thoughts continue to remain with the families and loved ones of those affected by the derailment. Now, it was also confirmed that the train had already been turned back towards Aberdeen after a landslide was found on the way back. It then struck another landslide, and it was too late for the train to slow down. Next, you may have seen the headlines regarding this ghost train between Manchester and London that people were not very happy about. Well, the rail regulator, which is the Office for Road and Rail, have admitted it did not have all the facts when it decided to not allow passengers on a peak time service between Manchester and London. The Office for Road and Rail said it was missing crucial points when it made a decision that would have turned the service into a ghost train, running daily for months. Now, the chief executive of the Office for Road and Rail, John Larkinson, said his organisation did not know the train would be fully crewed, would leave from Manchester Piccadilly rather than a depot, and that it had to get to Euston to become the 9:30 service to Glasgow. It comes after the Office for Road and Rail faced backlash in November off of lots of people over its decision to allow the popular 7 o'clock train to run but carrying only staff. So basically like an empty coaching stock, I suppose. This decision, which would have taken effect from mid-December, was quickly reversed following the significant concern. And the ORR has justified the decision by saying that the service would have had to run empty so its slot could be used as a fire break, which is a planned gap in the timetable in case of delays. But in a letter to the Chair of Parliament's Transport Committee, the ORR has said that the facts which later came to light meant the slot could no longer be considered an effective fire break. It said that the team assessing the application didn't ask Avanti West Coast, who would have run the service, for more information, and that meant that the points were not really clear. They didn't really know exactly what was going on. However, he said that if the team had contacted Avanti, its decision may have been very different. But they were stretched at the time and very busy and trying to close out multiple interacting decisions. He added that the Office for Road and Rail was dealing at the time with 82 complex and competing applications for track access, and even the train operating company complained in early November, and the points they made were not escalated properly. That's what the letter has said. Now, sticking with Avanti West Coast, it has made a bid to bring back an extra weekday London train service for Blackpool after a series of recent cuts. The train operator said that it wanted to add the extra service when the next timetable changes came in May, but the move has not yet been approved. It is thought that this could be the 12:52 service from Blackpool to London. The 4 daily direct services to and from London Euston were actually reduced to just 2 last month. A spokesperson for Avanti West Coast has said that, as with every timetable change, they have to bid for the additional services that they wish to run, and these are subject to approval by the Office and Road and Rail. Now, they added that the services which may be showing in some online rail services like real-time trains, I have seen online that they are showing up on real-time trains, but they have said these are not yet confirmed. So just to reiterate, they are showing online on some websites, but they are not yet actually being confirmed. Now, a Blackpool South MP has confirmed that he's going to meet the Transport Minister after he raised concerns about the scale of cuts to Blackpool's rail links. Avanti West Coast said that the cuts to Blackpool timetable were made by the Office and Road and Rail and not the company itself. So there we go. I think there might be a bit of beef coming on between Avanti West Coast and the Office of Road and Rail. They've had a bumpy few months in their relationship, haven't they, shall we say? Now, this one you're going to find absolutely shocking. I just know you are. ScotRail has had to apologise after an elderly passenger collapsed and suffered a very severe concussion after enduring freezing temperatures in a carriage on one of its most popular routes, the Highland Main Line. So it happened in December on a service from Oban to Glasgow, and the man who this actually happened to is actually been talking to a local newspaper, the Oban Times, and he said that both he and his wife were reasonably well dressed, but they were still unable to fight off the freezing temperatures on the service. He added that there was no heating that he could feel, neither of them could feel, and that he was bloody furious that he collapsed due to the unacceptable travelling conditions. He said that he and his partner's trip lasted 1 hour and 20 minutes until they had to disembark at Crean Larrick, where passengers were then transferred to a replacement bus instead to Glasgow. A ScotRail spokesperson has since offered an apology, wishing him a full recovery. So it was that cold on the train that he actually collapsed when he got off the train, which that is quite bad, isn't it? Now then, here's a nice one. Transpennine Express has named one of its Nova 1 trains the Northern Star, to celebrate its partnership with three lifeboat charities. Now, the train will honour the RNLI, the St Abbs Independent Lifeboat, and the Humber Rescue. The event brought together lifeboat volunteers, charity representatives, and Transpennine Express partners for speeches and the official unveiling of the train's name. The ceremony marked a shared commitment to safety on the railway and at sea, and highlighted the vital work carried out by lifeboat crews across the UK. Transpennine Express has launched its partnership with the lifeboat charities last year to raise awareness of water safety and support fundraising efforts for lifeboat operations. With the majority of RNLI rescues involving visitors travelling from inland areas to the coast, which is what Transpennine Express do, so from places such as Leeds or Manchester to Hull and Cleethorpes, it's quite relevant, I suppose, to Transpennine Express. The partnership is a natural extension of the train operators' roles in connecting people to these locations, and the partnership also celebrates a shared history, with the RNLI's very first street collection in 1891 taking place in Manchester, which is obviously one of the major cities on Transpennine Express's routes. Now, Transpennine Express, not Transpennine Express, but it does link to Transpennine Express, I suppose, does this. Chiltern Railways has introduced its new trains across the West Midlands. The launch marks a significant investment in rail travel for customers in the West Midlands and on that route to London, delivering improved capacity, comfort and accessibility, which is great. From December 2026, the new fleet is expected to provide 10,000 additional seats every weekday, supporting rising demand for rail travel and helping to strengthen regional connectivity between the West Midlands, Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and London. Now 13 new trains make up the Chiltern Explorer fleet, a name chosen directly by customers through a series of focus groups and shortlist processes. Chiltern Railway said that it sought a name that conveyed movement, excitement and distinctiveness, and the name Chiltern Explorers emerged as the clear favourite. The name will feature across the network, including onboard announcements, station displays and train branding, helping customers easily identify the new fleet as it rolls out during 2026. Now, I mentioned just before then that this does also kind of link to Transpennine Express. The trains that they are bringing in were previously used by Transpennine Express. However, they did decide to let them go back in 2023. And finally, this was also big news this week. There has been severe disruption to Cornwall and Devon, particularly between Exeter St David's and Plymouth, where services were suspended for a little bit of time after part of the seawall protecting the line at Dawlish partially collapsed, leaving debris and flooding on the track. The damage occurred at Ceylon Terrace, where a section of the wall were demolished, scattering tons of debris across the railway. The disruption came as part of the southwest were battering Storm Ingrid. Local authorities said that the incident demonstrated that further investment was needed to strengthen the route, which is being described as a crucial lifeline for the entire southwest. You've got to remember that is the only way currently to get down to Devon through to Cornwall. So when that is cut off, that's quite a big deal. Now, Network Rail did confirm that the seawall had collapsed in 2 places, prompting a very, very, very extremely rare black alert, which is its highest weather warning. So rare that it is only the second time that they have had to issue that, and the other time also happened to be in Dawlish back in that very memorable storm back in 2014. Now, following the inspections of safety critical parts of the infrastructure, Network Rail said a limited service was now operating through Dawlish. However, speed restrictions remain in place, resulting in ongoing delays. So that is us coming to the end of yet another Trains Round episode. I think you can probably gather by now I am trying to keep these like a weekly thing. Hopefully we can keep that going for as long as possible. I do hope you've enjoyed. If you have, give this video a nice juicy like, subscribe, leave a comment as well. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and if you have any thoughts on any of the stories in this episode, do leave them down below and we will get round to reading them. And that's going to be me for Trains Round. I'll see you next week. Goodbye. Dramatic. Dramatic, what's the word? The opposite of entrance. Exit, that's the word.